Don't try to fix it. You can't fix it.
Yeah.
But
and that's tough as a guy.
Right.
You know, it really is.
Oh, yeah. Especially for you coaches. Yeah. I mean, Aaron would be like, all right, we're going to do some burpees and we're just going to get over it.
Welcome to the Badass Dad podcast, where we are a band of brothers committed to forging stronger fathers. Hey, thanks so much for listening to this episode. This is being brought to you by the generous donations of the people who have made contributions at our website, which is BadAssDads.org, BadAssDads.org. You can also find some promotional shirts and other ways to support the podcast as well. But just want to thank you guys so much for your support. Enjoy this episode. Welcome to the Badass Dad podcast. KDH here on the microphone and across from me. You know, socially distanced, but I don't feel like we need to be.
No.
But only the third female to be in the studio.
Heyo.
I know you would probably be a little upset that you weren't the first one.
That's true.
I do apologize for that.
It's okay.
But we do have Benta Clark, Benta Clark, Benta Clark. How you feeling?
I'm feeling great.
Yeah.
So excited to be here.
Yes.
And the first two ladies that you had on were fantastic. So no shade, no shade.
All right. Well, you know, we're going to get in and we're going to talk a little bit about adoption, because you and Aaron just adopted a little girl coming about 8 weeks ago, and a proud mama and papa for sure. So we're going to get into that. But, you know, before we do, man, it was early on last year. So Stephen was just telling me we are celebrating our 1 year anniversary in the studio. So wow, how amazing that is. But I did interview your brothers. And so this is, you know, some of the time you're going to get to set the record straight. Maybe
Absolutely.
if there's some things, you know, with them, and being the big sister, always the big sister. But also very excited because John and Shanae just got married.
Yes, they did.
And you've got a littlest brother, Josiah, and Connor getting married here in next month or
July 17th, I think.
Oh my gosh, so totally crazy. But let's start with your story. I mean, here you are, little Benta Clark, growing up in Phoenix, Arizona, and then get relocated to the bustling metropolis of Kachara. But tell us a little about Benta growing up as a little girl.
Well, first of all, I definitely did not like the mountains. I don't like the snow. We moved to Colorado, and I was like, WTF is this? Yeah. It was miserable, but I'm a desert rat through and through. So grew up very much tomboy, had my little sister and my two little brothers, and really I'm the oldest, so I am the archetype oldest child driver. Definitely tried to kill them multiple times with pushing them off of things or running them into walls. So we didn't go over that in my home study too much, but yeah, definitely my babysitting skills were questionable. So both of them are superheroes now, my brothers, and so I definitely take full credit for that, because they would not be as tough as they are now if I had not pushed them so much when they were little.
And then Nakia is how much younger than you?
She is 18 months.
Okay, so y'all were a lot closer in age. Okay.
Definitely, yeah.
Okay. And how was that growing up with a little sister that was, you know, basically your shadow?
Oh, well, she's in no way my shadow. She's her own person for sure.
Yeah.
But
as kids, you know,
yeah.
I mean, she looks up to her older sister, I'm sure.
No, definitely not. No. She was like everything I was. She was like, I don't want to be that, so I'm going to be something else. She definitely has her own personality. Yeah. And, growing up, we were, typical, close siblings. You know, she would go out for something and I would go out for it, and it'd become really competitive. And so she's, her own woman for sure.
So I think you said there's like 9 years difference between you and Josiah, so oldest to youngest?
Yeah,
Is that
I think
right?
it's 8, but yes.
8? Wow. Okay, so that's kind of crazy just thinking about it. I mean, you got to really experience what it would be like early on, like raising a little baby, you know, when you're like 8. Wow.
Yes, he is. Josiah was like my little experiment. Was just, and just for the record, because, they were on here and they're both like these strong, awesome men, but we put them in dresses. We were like, hey, you know what? We're going to put these guys, we're going to dress them in drag before it was cool. And they're going to kill me for saying that. But, I got to kind of be a part of really raising them. When we moved to Colorado, my parents were both working full time. And so I was really able to kind of come along and help them for good and bad. So,
yeah. And so you move to Colorado, you're 10 years old, like 4th, 5th grade, something like that. And, new environment. And you guys don't just, it's not like y'all moved to Denver.
Right.
You moved to the mountains. I mean, you are in the mountains. So you go literally from the desert to the mountains. And so there's a complete cultural shift for you. But what was little Benta like growing up? Was she an athlete like all the rest of the family? What was she? What?
No. So I have zero athletic ability whatsoever. It's amazing to me. I come from this family of athletes, going to school on scholarships for basketball and track. And I have zero athletic ability. But what I do really well is I act, and I'm very loud.
Yes.
So, for example, a quick story on me was, give you a little bit about myself, was when I was in high school, I actually lied to my PE coach for 3 years and told him that I had asthma to get out of running every year. And so I borrowed an inhaler. I had a full, just like set up, and I'd wheeze, and I practiced my wheeze. And then he came in one day to my mom and was like, man, I'm so sorry, Benta's asthma is acting up so much. And my mom looks at him and without blinking and is like, Benta doesn't have asthma. And so I definitely had to make up some PE credits and did cheerleading to make up those credits.
Okay.
So it was pretty embarrassing to have my mom out me like that. But, I was a really great actress, and I was a really great, theater student. I was a thespian.
Thespian.
Yes, very clear.
Kind of like Jacob. Jacob.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. He puts me to shame, but for sure. Yeah.
I don't know about that. But so you finished school there, and then what happens post high school?
Post high school, I did an internship, a leadership internship, and then I went to college during the nighttime because I was paying for it all out of pocket. So I would work like 3 jobs. I was in working with teenagers, at-risk teenagers, for about 6 years, and then I'd go to school at night, and then I ended up leaving, going to the University of Colorado, Colorado Springs, with my brother Jonathan, who's fantastic, when he went to school. And so he was a freshman and I was a senior, because that's how long it had taken me. I always tell people I took like the 20-year route through college. But it took me that long to figure out what I was going to be really good at, which, being loud and being in theater, of course, the obvious thing for me to go into is politics. So I got my degree in political science, constitutional law, with an emphasis on Middle Eastern politics.
Okay. Well, I did not know you went to UCCS. We actually used to live right behind UCCS.
I'm so sorry.
Right
I probably
there.
Parked in your driveway.
Probably so.
Yep.
Well, so you get done with school, or you take that route through school, and then you've had a pretty diverse working career as well. So give us a little of that background also.
Yeah. So it's been such a cool experience the last 10 years of my life, really. I've done a lot of human resources, but then in the midst of all of that, I've worked for huge corporations like Jacobs, and then I've also been the president of a nonprofit in Phoenix, Arizona. So that was for an organization that did a lot of human rights work, and that was fantastic and very hard at the same time. Had a contract doing that, came back home to Colorado. I actually worked at STEM School Highlands Ranch for a semester, and then left that right before everything went down there. And then I also now work with women's ministry actually at a church. So it's a lot of fun, very diverse, but I can definitely tell you that every single thing I've ever done has definitely impacted every other job that I've had. So I can take politics into anything, because no matter where you work, whether it's a church or a nonprofit, you're dealing with some sort of political atmosphere. So it's been a wild ride, but I love what I do. I'm excited about what I do. So it's been fun.
Well, and you have been hugely instrumental in this band, in this BadAssDads, and getting me off my butt to do some things as well. And I have a perception of how the story goes, but will you share the story of when, because you introduced me to your dad. I mean, after you and I met, well, I should back up a little bit. We met because your husband, Aaron, who's also been on the podcast, we coached football together, and then you and I met and just you have a great strategic mind, and you were, talking me through some things, and you go, dude, you got to meet my dad. And so he was in town, and we met at Fika at the office.
The office.
The office. And, tell me a little bit about what you remember of that time.
Well, several things actually that I want to clarify here. So first of all, you knew Jonathan, my brother, and that's how he started coaching football with you.
Yes.
Well, very funny story is he came in and started telling me what he was doing, and I was like, hey, you should really plug in Aaron to that. So I was already like weaving this in even before it. And John ended up tagging in Aaron. Aaron was like, I don't know. And then fell in love with it, and John left. So, there's that. So I take full credit for the fact that Aaron and you are such great teammates. But so then I remember, meeting with you and hearing your heart for Badass Dads. And really just, I love this idea so much because I really do think we have, what I call a strong man famine in the nation. And unfortunately, it doesn't seem to be going away. And so hearing your heart and your passion for building up awesome men. Sorry.
You can say it. It's okay.
Godly men. Building up strong men. I'm sorry. But, ultimately, like, every strong man I know has a good core and not the abs kind, like the, foundation kind. And honestly, I loved what you were saying, and the whole time you were talking, I was hearing my dad talk. And, you and I are very much like siblings. I'm like the little sister you never wanted. You're welcome. But I would love what you were saying, and I just remember hearing your heart, and really it just like, it lit a fire in me, because I really do believe that, truly, I believe that when men are strong, women are given the freedom to be strong, because those two dynamics, masculinity and femininity, they are symbiotic. And so we need strong men in the world for there to be strong women, and then vice versa. And so when you were talking, I was just, man, it just burned in my heart, and I heard just my dad's heart. And so I introduced you to him, and then of course, I got forced out because my dad and my brothers are so much cooler than me. It's so infuriating, but in reality, it's just such a great thing to see my dad, who's just the strongest man I know, and you meet, and it was like brothers from another mother. So it was really cool.
Well, and it was so much fun, and we will eventually get him on the mic. I will wear him down because I am like radiation. I will kill him eventually. So, so here's one of the phrases though that you used, and I can't remember exactly how it was, but I remember it was in reference to a certain worship leader, and you go, well, I just really like that you don't wear skinny jeans, or it was something around skinny jeans.
I said I was like, these skinny jean effeminate men, man.
That is so good. Well, let's get into the subject at hand. So adoption here. So let's. Some people adopt just because they feel a heart, they feel a passion for adoption. Some people, like Gretchen and I, Gretchen and I were married 14 years, no kids. We'd wanted kids. We'd hoped. We'd prayed. We'd, had people, all sorts of different things, gone to medical facilities, and we just were not able to do it. We didn't, we did not conceive of a child. And so there was a level of frustration, and I want to be careful because I don't want to project on you, because I want you to tell your story and y'all's journey. But, there was so many false starts, so many different things that went on, so many emotions that came up, for us during those 14 years, always believing that God wanted us to be parents. And we wanted to be parents. We really did. We wanted to be parents. But it didn't happen the way we thought it was going to happen. And so tell us, take us on that journey a little bit. So, you and Aaron, get married, and that to have a family was important to you guys, but it just doesn't happen. So
absolutely. So really, to go all the way back, I have to just. Aaron did the podcast, and I sat and I listened. I just wept when I listened to that, because he's such an amazing man, and he's so selfless, and he really told that story with such grace. So I highly recommend, for hearing his version, the grace-filled version, you want to go back and listen to him.
All right.
For me, date one, Aaron looked at me and he said, all I've ever wanted to be is a dad. I wanted to be in the NFL, and not me, him, but, and he was like, but I knew if I played in the NFL, I wouldn't have the knees or the hips to be able to play with my kids someday. And he said, so I've always wanted to be a dad. So that was like in my mind. And, we fall in love, we do this whole marriage thing, and we get married, and even on our honeymoon, we were talking about it, and he was just like, man, let's do this. Let's have kids. Let's have a family. And I have to tell you, I always tell people, they're always like, did you want to be a mom? And I'm like, no, I wanted to be a lawyer. I wanted to beat people in the courtroom.
I can absolutely see that.
And so, so for me, I was just very much of the mindset that, I'm not the family person. Even getting married was kind of a shock to me. But Aaron really just was God's plan for my life. And there's no way of getting around that. And there's this Carrie Underwood song that says, I finally found what I never knew I always wanted. And so, marrying Aaron, really my dreams changed. And that can happen. Dreams can change. You're not one track mind, one track life, your whole life. Things can happen that change that. So we get married, we decide we're going to start having kids. And same, very different as far as timeline, but about a year in, we realized, something's wrong. And I was dealing with excruciating pain. And really that took us in depth, without going too in depth, because I know there's a lot of men on here. I will spare you all the OBG appointments. But I just went through this journey of finding out that I had this very extreme disease, that it was the highest level of this disease. I had multiple surgeons tell me that it was a miracle that I could walk, that I lived a normal life. But I was dealing with day in and day out excruciating pain. And so long, arduous story short, we get to the end of this journey 2 years ago, and I have a surgeon look at me and he said, listen, we told him, hey, we're on this track for adoption. And the year before, he had told me, no, I don't want you to have a hysterectomy. I don't want you to do this. I don't want to kill your dreams. That's what he kept telling me. I don't want to kill your dreams. The next year I go in, he said, give it 1 year, do this whole regimen, same thing, go to a surgery center, do procedures, all this different stuff that just puts a woman and a man through so much emotional baggage, because they're messing with your hormones, they're messing with your mind, and your mind's already messed up because your body's not working. So you're like, what the heck, man, Mother Nature's out to get me. So, he pulled me in the year later and he was like, hey, what do you think? And I said, we're on the track to adoption. And he went, good, you're having surgery next week. He said, this is horrible. I can't believe that you've gone through this year. And a week later, I had this hysterectomy at 32 years old, and it was just, and I'm sorry, 32. It was, I was 32. And it was just excruciating. It was horrible. It was terrible. The whole time I'm looking at my husband going, he told me date one, all he ever wanted was to have kids. And, there's this part of my heart that's going, I'm obviously the reason we can't have kids, and so you bear that guilt and that shame and that weight. And even though we were in the process of adoption, you've got to grieve. And I'm sorry, but this world has zero tolerance for grieving people. And so it was just a really difficult and challenging time for us.
Yeah. And I mean, walking that path of infertility, it just, there are so many, I don't know, insecurities, inadequacies, emotions that come up and that you feel. And there are a lot of well-intended people out there also. And, I probably shared it, several times, but, knowing what to do is one thing. Okay. It takes a certain level of skill. Knowing how to do something, takes a level of mastery or whatever, but knowing when to do something takes wisdom. And, it's the same thing with, saying you may know what to say. You may even know how to say it, but knowing when to say it is important. And so, this is one of the questions I didn't tell you ahead of time, but I want to ask, during that process, what are some things that people, probably well-meaning people, said to you, but just the timing was just way off, and it hurt.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great question. And unfortunately, even though you didn't prep me for it, I have like 4 answers right off the bat. So the first one was always, well, you can just adopt. And adoption in my mind, even though we went through it, was never a plan B for me. Even in my, early dreams, I never thought adoption was like plan B. I always wanted to adopt. I just didn't realize this was the path that was going to take me on it. So, well, you can always adopt. Oh, gee, thanks. Thanks. My heart's ripped out. I can always adopt.
Yeah.
The second second thing was, and this was really well-meaning, but, just talk about a slap in the face was, well, God can still work miracles. And you're like, well, listen, I don't have the parts anymore for God to work those miracles.
Right,
so does that mean my faith is in question now? So that was probably the most gut-wrenching one, was God can still work miracles.
Yeah.
You just need to have faith. And honestly, and everyone that knows me, I'd look at them and be like, Aaron,
you give them that look. You got that look.
Yeah,
Benta's got that look. Yeah.
And so Aaron would kind of have to pull my shirt back and be like, "It's okay, honey, just show him some grace." But that was really my big oh, thanks. That's a big F you to me, because I do have faith and I've believed God and I've loved God my whole life. But you know what? That's just not my path right now. And then I'll never forget it, honestly. And there were a couple more, but one of the best things that somebody ever did to me was they sent me a card and it just said, "Damn, this sucks." And that was it. That was all the card said. And I was just like, wow, thank you. Thank you for yes, thank you for just letting me grieve, letting me be in that pain.
Yeah.
And so, but the big things that people, just well-meaning people, I finally had to send a text out to a couple ladies and just say, listen, I know you're not comfortable with the fact that I'm mad. I know you're not comfortable with the fact that, you don't have the answers and this doesn't fit in your idea of what it should look like. But you know what? Ultimately, at the end of the day, just let it suck. Let it. And I actually have a shirt that says, I think it's the seals that say, "Embrace the suck."
Embrace the suck.
Because that was really my motto at that time, was just embrace it. Stop trying to run from it, because that's how you can grieve. You can begin that process.
Yeah. Well, and it's so easy, to have all these great theories, and the old saying, the cleanliness of theory is no match for the mess of reality. And we see the storybook, ending, and here's how it's going to all play out. But we miss all of the the shit that goes on, in between there, in the meantime, if you will. So, How has it been, for you? I know, well, I'm going to back up a little bit. For me, Gretchen and I had been married 14 years. I was actually 44 when we adopted Jacob. Okay. Yeah. So I was an old dude, still old dude, but I had definitely romanticized what it's going to be like. Here this boy is going to walk into our life and he's going to see us and he's going to instantly fall in love. Now there's a little difference because obviously your daughter is an infant. You guys got to bring her home from the hospital, but has there been some of that for you?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Oh yeah. There's definitely, it's almost like marriage. I was telling somebody this the other day, adoption's like marriage. You walk into it thinking it's going to be, breakfast in bed and long days of, making out every day. And it's nothing like that. It's a choice. And adoption definitely was romanticized in my mind. I had this idea that, we're going to go in here and we are going to rescue this person. And boy, my world was flipped on its head, because that's not at all what adoption is. That's not at all the process that I experienced. Aaron and I just really got to experience a lot of false starts. We got to experience a lot of heartbreak. But really, if what I think you're asking is probably, what was the experience of adoption?
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
We went through an agency, so a little bit different than you and Gretchen, because you guys went through social services,
yep.
Which, so Aaron, and we sat down with y'all about 3 years ago almost now, and maybe it was two,
Yeah.
but anyway, in there. And Aaron was out on adoption. He wouldn't even talk about it with me. And
wow.
I remember sitting on y'all's back deck, and Gretchen had just made us some awesome food, and she had just been telling us, hey, you guys were telling us your story. And that was the first time that Aaron, after we drove away from your house that night, that was the first time that Aaron looked at me and went, okay, let's look at this. Let's really, because I had known this was before my surgery, before everything else. And I knew something was really wrong in my body and this just was not going to happen. And so, starting that process, having agencies turn us down because we were Christians, having agencies turn us down because they stopped their infant domestic programs, that was the path that Aaron really wanted to take initially, because he was just like, hey, this is my dream. Let's go with this. And I was like, okay. So we find this agency in Castle Rock. They're fantastic, but they really took us under their wing. We actually found them through football. One of the other families was going through the core training with them. And so we were like, hey, we want to do it too. And so found them. It was very, so just guts on the floor, if I can be real here. The day that we started the process with them was like 3 days before my surgery. And so I get out of surgery. And of course, everyone's consolation is, well, you'll adopt, it'll be fine. And what they don't understand is that we're dealing with paperwork asking us everything. I mean, oh my gosh, I cannot even express to you how vulnerable we had to be in our interviews and in the paperwork. It was the most, inappropriate questions you can think of, ranging from what are your finances to how's your sex life. It was intense. And so, that really just, what we call in my family, that really broke the glass to where you could see the reality of the situation, where this is serious, and it's not this, skipping through daisy fields and getting to pluck children out of nowhere. It was this very gut-wrenching experience.
So how do you make it through that?
Aaron Clark is how I make it through that. Yeah. He is my hopium addict. He is full of grace and faith. And there would be days where we'd be getting ready to walk into the agency, and I would have a chip on my shoulder going, you're going to ask me really personal questions. Right. And the only reason I'm in here right now is because my body has rejected me. So, Aaron would, we'd pull up and he'd be like, Benta, just be yourself. And if it sucks, tell him it sucks. And if it hurts, tell him it hurts. But his MO for me was always, I'm right here beside you. You're not walking alone. We got this together. We're a team. And so Aaron Clark is how I get through that, for sure. Well,
that just speaks to the power of partnership and, having the strengths. And, you have some strengths, he has some strengths, and being able to communicate there. And I you have not shared, and nor has Aaron shared this, so I'm not even thinking that this has come about from him per se. But like, I don't know how. The question that I want to ask is like, what's the worst advice or the worst thing that a husband could say to a wife during this phase? When she is incredibly vulnerable. Okay, they would never say it, but part of me is kind of like, oh, just suck it up, buttercup, or something like that. That's not what it'd be, but sometimes even someone being, overly positive is hard. Hey, it's going to be okay. Or, even like you said before, what about your, I don't know that maybe a husband would say something like that, but I want guys that are going through this experience or women, because we actually have women that listen, that listen to this and go, okay, man, I need to be careful when I'm communicating to my sister, to my, whomever, to my wife in this season. And so give us some things that could be harmful, and then another way maybe to handle it.
Absolutely. Well, I think you hit the nail right on the head, actually. The overly positive side. Listen, this is hard. Adoption's hard. Infertility is it's excruciating. And I think the stat is something like 1 in 3 women deal with some level of infertility. Okay. So whether it's, PCOS or the stat's ridiculous. And I know it's 1 in 10 women have the same disease that I had. So It's a high number. I think the hardest thing for me with anyone was people trying to diminish it by just not being okay with the pain. So, Aaron, we both know, Aaron's a really positive person. And so he is like, and he would have days where he'd look at me and be like, Benta, I can't be around you right now because your negativity is so hard. And I'd have to, go and kind of, run it out or work it off or something like that. But, being in that place of heartbroken, I think a really tangible example of something just not to say is it's going to be okay. you know what? Let it not be okay.
Yeah.
There's this really great book that we're reading avidly at night, and that's the name of my daughter. And it's called Grumpy Monkey. And I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna lie. Like, the philosophy of this book is so deep, because it's all about chimpanzee, and he just can't shake it off. And everybody has an answer on how he needs to shake it off.
Yeah.
Dance with the porcupines, jiggle with the snake. It's ridiculous. But at the end of it, he's just like, let it be okay. Let it be okay that you're grumpy.
Yeah.
And so for me, with Aaron, and with the other men in my life, my brothers were they were really just, hey, this sucks. What do you need? That would be their, like, what do you need? And Aaron, I don't know, probably 100 million times he asked me, what do you need? What can I do for you today? How can I be there for you today? And just acknowledging in yourself, for men, acknowledging yourself when you're grieving. There came a time where Aaron was angry a lot, and he's not an angry guy, this.
Right.
And he was just angry and short, and I had to look at him and be like, hey, you're grieving. You're in the anger stage of grief.
Yeah.
You need to go, and you need to be okay with grieving. And I'm actually pretty sure he called you that day, and you guys went and grabbed a beer. Just embracing the fact that we are where we are, and it's okay to let people sit in there. And my motto, and this is what I have it written on my tombstone, is just be there for people. That's the good side of things, is don't try to fix it. You can't fix it.
Yeah.
But
and that's tough as a guy.
Right.
It really is.
Oh, yeah. Especially for you coaches. Yeah. I mean, Aaron would be like, all right, we're going to do some burpees, and we're just going to get over it. And I'd be like, we are not going to do burpees, and we are not getting over it. But, for guys, it's so hard when you face a battle that you can't fix. And Aaron, he just struggled so much with that, because he wanted me to be okay, because he loved me so much. Mm-hmm. And there came a point where I just had to look at him and say, I'm not okay, but it's not because of you.
Yeah.
And so that's with guys, I think, number one, just be there. Say, I'm here. What do you need? And if they look at you and say, I don't need anything, at least I always knew my husband was there. I always knew he had my back. And there was a day where I looked at him and I was like, I need to fall apart. And that's where you go to the shooting range. That's where you go and you buy those Goodwill plates and go throw them against a wall. That's where you go and you just handle the grief, and you don't shy away from it. So that was huge.
Yeah. So Avonlea, so we do get to mention her name, is born on...
She was born on April 5th.
April 5th. Mm-hmm. And so, we were talking earlier that, I was going to have Aaron on the podcast again to kind of chronicle this journey. And it is literally the day, I don't remember if it was the day before, the day of, that he sends me the text message, hey, we're on our way down to the Springs because she is about to be given birth. And we hear all these stories of, when the mother gives birth and, it has this and this little alien is laying on her chest and, the oxytocin or whatever it is, all of these hormones come through and there's this instant connection. And, sometimes that doesn't happen.
Right.
There's not that, I mean, it doesn't happen the same way for everyone. Tell us a little bit about that journey. I know this is going to be really hard, but tell us a little bit about that journey. And I want to encourage you to go, this is just a season, because some women, I've never witnessed this firsthand, but I know some women have that postpartum like depression, which is, and I don't totally get how that works, but they have that. But there can be some of this with adoption as well. So talk, what I'm asking?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yes. Okay. All right. Well, one of the great things about sharing this story is, I'm talking to a friend. Yeah. But I also, you and your wife have walked through this journey with us. So, as I'm sharing this with all the badass dads and daughters and women on the show, there's a level of safety here. So I feel really comfortable sharing this. So the adoption process for me personally was, a lot of people are like, yeah, but when they place that baby in your arms, it's all worth it. Mm-hmm. And someday Avonlea is going to listen to this, and I want to make sure that she knows she was worth every ounce of heartache that we went through, every sleepless night, every pain, every heartache. She was worth every bit of it. And the other thing I want to say, starting this off, is there's a stereotype about birth moms and dads out there that they just don't love their child. They're giving up their child for adoption. And I just want to say that that is not the case with our story. Our birth mom is the hero of our story. She is truly somebody who I look up to, and she placed her child in our arms because of her love for this child. And so I just want to get that on the table. So first of all, we're at the hospital, and we're dealing with a lot of issues because we're dealing with an adoption in the midst of COVID.
Oh my God. Yes, right.
Right. So we're dealing with, a lot of times when the birth mom makes their hospital plan, they can decide, hey, I want you here at the hospital at this time. You get to hold the baby. You get to be in the delivery room. But COVID kind of threw all of that out the window. So the great news is for our situation, and being very delicate with sharing that side of things, our birth family, not the agency, our birth family advocated for us to be in the hospital with them. They were our number one supporters. They were the number one people going to the nurses and the doctors saying, we want this family involved. Get them in the hospital. The hospital is saying you can't have people in the hospital visiting, and they were saying, no, we want them there. So we were actually in the room next to our birth mother when our daughter was born, and praying and really dreaming about what this was going to be like. And, they wheeled our baby girl in, and I was terrified. I didn't have this moment of like maternal joy and like, oh my gosh. I was in pure shock and fear. I mean, Aaron was weeping, he's, Mr. just crying. And I was just in utter panic, like, oh my gosh, what if the reason, and this was my thought, what if the reason I didn't have a kid was because God didn't think I would be a good mom? And I just forced this. And so that was the first thought that I had was, oh my gosh, what if God just did not want me to be a mom? And I'm going to tell you, Kevin, people do not understand that. No. They do not have any way of coping with that line of thought. Aaron, even, I think I haven't even told him that was my first thought, was just fear. And it took a good couple weeks. We had a kind of a hard time getting Avonlea out of the hospital, and unfortunately with our agency that was a little bit of a struggle. We were dealing with some caseworker issues there, but the birth mom again advocated for us and advocated for her daughter to go home in the midst of this pandemic, because that wasn't what was being asked by the agency, was that she stayed in the hospital. And so it was really hard for me to even feel like this is my daughter up until I walked in my front door of my house with her. And that was a moment for me where it was kind of like that wall that I had built up of this isn't real, I don't get to keep her. That first chunk came out the minute that I walked in my front door. And then another chunk happened the first night that I got to watch her, and I'm sobbing in the middle of my living room because she's crying and I don't know what to do. But
you've read all the books.
But I've read all the books, right? No, I didn't read a single book. I was like, absolutely no books.
You got nieces and nephews. You should know what to do.
That's, I was like, well, I have brothers and they're both awesome. And I don't, I help raise them. I don't understand this. But, I just every single first with her. So the first time she smiled at me, the first time that she opened her eyes and looked directly at me. People are always like, oh, she doesn't really see you. And I was like, lies. She sees me. Right. She knows me. And really it just over time just wore down to where my heart was, I'm in love with this kid now. There's no prying her out of my hands. She is at home right now, and I'm like, okay, I can't wait to go home and see her and hold her. But it did take, so number one, it took having all those moments of intimacy for myself with her. Not just me and Aaron. Aaron and I both had those moments together and apart where he was immediately like, this is my daughter. But I'm also in the hospital going, I want to be respectful to her birth mom.
Right.
And I'm her adoptive mom, but I want to show her the honor that she's showing me by giving her this space to spend time with our daughter, collectively.
Yeah.
And so that was gut-wrenching. I will be honest. Having those first was number one. Number two is you have to have a good community. When you're going to adopt, having a good community is vital. And I'll never forget, I was at the hospital and I left the hospital. I was having a meltdown because I was dealing with some stuff with one of the caseworkers. And I called up Gretchen, your wife, and I was just like, I am losing it. What do I do? And having her with no judgment, experiencing that, knowing that she's been on that journey before, having her look on the phone, say, Benta, I understand. And no, she does understand.
Yeah.
She's not just saying that like a figurative, oh, it's going to be okay. No, she knows what that pain and heartache feels like. I don't think without being able to have that lifeline, that 45-second friend, that you always talk about, I don't think I would have made it. I'll be honest, because having that dose of reality is what helped me to take the next step of healing and forgiveness in the hospital with that situation with the agency.
Wow. And I know, I mean, there's layers and layers and layers of the story, and there's emotional confusion that is felt throughout all of this. There's, the COVID pandemic, and all the other politics. I mean, that is going to be more hotly debated than being a vegan or a carnivore, omnivore during these times. But so you're navigating so many different things, and you're coming at it. But there was a feeling that the people that were supposed to be on our team are not on our team. There was a situation with the social worker, and that level of frustration, and yet you hang in there. You reach out to that lifeline. You have Aaron that is an amazing rock as well, and you're learning day in and day out that the cleanliness of theory is no match for the mess of reality, and maybe the story didn't begin the way that you had anticipated or romanticized about it, but each day is getting better and better. So catch us up now that we're nearly 8 weeks into this journey.
Absolutely. Well, as you just said, the journey didn't start off smooth. It was definitely not the clean picture, but nobody's story is. And that was something you guys told us, the agency told us as well, is nobody's story looks the same. What I can say is that the agency 100% made up for the way that we were experiencing that hospital visit. They definitely came in and made amends for the way that we were feeling, and they fixed it. In the midst of all of that, we've also had our first family visit with our birth mother, and that was an incredible experience. We joke, with our family that they're just extended family. I kid with you about being my adopted big brother, but I don't kid about that. I really do see adoption the way that it should be, and that's we have these friends and people in our life that are sometimes more our family than our actual family. So, having and I have a great family, so I'm definitely not complaining about that. But, I just, over the last 8 weeks, we have had this incredible life change. And you got to remember, so a lot of people in the adoption process, they get selected in, 6 months, 8 months in advance. We had 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things that's so imperative to the story is our birth mom selected us, and 2 weeks later we were in the hospital with our baby girl. And so, what I can say is I never realized how selfish I was. I am so selfish. The fact that I don't get to wake up and have my hour of coffee and quiet time and then go for my workout. And, I'm like, oh, she's impacting my schedule. But, now it's so amazing how you evolve as a human, because now it's like, all right, it's me and AV time. We've got, quality time that we get together. And she goes on, instead of, my hardcore HIIT workout I was going to do, now we're going on walks and we're doing stuff like that. And so it's just been this incredible journey. She is cooing and she is smiling and she recognizes our voices. And so it's just been a really incredible experience. Everyone is just in love with her. You cannot meet this kid and not love her.
Right.
She is just the delight of my life. So it's been an incredible journey. In the midst of all of that, really, I know it's silly. It sounds kind of silly, but Aaron and I's marriage has never been stronger. Mm-hmm. I mean, we have come through what what is a great victory, but through a battle as well. And so whether it's through health or what we were dealing with at the hospital, we overcame that together. So now I look at Aaron and I just have so much more admiration for the man that he is, because I've seen his integrity at work, not just in theory. Theory is great, but practice is what really shows you who you are. And my dad always says, show me. What does he say? He always says something so profound. I forgot what it is. Yeah, I forgot. Anyway, but it's, when you squeeze an orange, what do you get? Orange juice. Yeah. When you squeeze a Christian, what do you get? He's like, you should get, the fruit of the Spirit, like joy, love, peace, and all this stuff. And so you haven't always seen that with me. I'm definitely the angry one of the two of us. I am the grumpy monkey, but Aaron has definitely just been my rock in the midst of all of that. And so, we're heralding the adoption banner. I think next time we probably go through social services though.
Okay. Well, let's make a little bit of a pivot and let's talk about a very important subject that is near and dear to your heart. And I know is near and dear to our heart as well. And that's football.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah. Love football.
So, so a little AV is going to be, attending some football games, this year and
in uniform.
In uniform. And so, I was very surprised when we got together just recently that Erin didn't have the front little carry with her headphones on yet. So I'm sure that'll be coming pretty quickly.
Yes, it is.
But
they're on order.
Yeah. So, there's a very famous line that is attributed to Benta Clark. And so share with us this because this is not just a football story, but this is a life story that transcends so much more than just the gridiron. So tell us about that.
Oh, absolutely. Well, one of the greatest privileges in my life right now is getting to witness, football season with the Parker Hawks, and it's been so cool and such a cool dynamic to not have a kid on the team because all the parents know I love their kids, and so it doesn't matter, if it's Cade or if it's Kyle or if it's Gage. It doesn't matter. Right. Like they all know I am for their kids, and so I believe as y'all are coaching the kids, it is my job to coach you, and so a lot of times
she's the coach's coach.
I am, and everyone knows it. Like all the parents will come up to me and be like, "Hey, so they're yelling pretty loud," and I'll walk up behind Aaron. I usually am attested to walking up behind Aaron and going, "Hey, you gonna cuss at kids? Or are you gonna cuss at kids?" And he's like, "No," and then he like waves me off, and then all the moms go, "Oh, burn," So it's just, but what was happening that day was, there was just an offensive play that Kevin, you guys were just running the same play time and time again. And, I don't know a lot about football. I never watched a football game before I got married to Aaron Clark. I love you, honey, but that you need to know that's how much I love you is I did not watch football. And he actually tricked me. It was when Johnny Manziel was in college. And so he was like, watch this guy. He's such a tool. And I did. And that's how I watched football because I wanted to see the drama. But, I started to love the game. I'm now an avid fan, and I knew this play was not working. And so that is the line that is attested to me was I was standing, I think, right behind you. Yep. And I was like, Kevin, it's not working. And I think you turned around and shot me the nastiest look. and I think we like hugged it out later. But, that actually became like my motto. And I think I even won an award.
Yes, you did win an award.
The best sideline coach of 2018. I think that sometimes we need to have those life lessons of, what, you're doing the same thing. And this is my life story. We're doing the same thing over and over. It's okay to say it's not working. Play a different play.
Yes.
So, that's my line.
Wow. Absolutely love it. And I tell you, Benta, this is, first of all, thank you for your honesty, your transparency, your willingness to tell the story, to dig into the weeds as well, and to pull back the curtain because it's easy. When people ask us about adoption now, we're 9 years into the journey. We don't remember. I don't remember all of the stuff, per se, back in the day. But it's easy to see where we are now and the love we have and all that kind of stuff. But to know that it's okay that when you're going through it, that just to embrace the suck. to be present in that moment, to have that Zen-like focus. It's not just focused on the future, but to be there in the moment. And so to be able to tell that story. So if people do want to connect with you, if they just want to ask you questions or whatever, where could they, we'll include in the show notes too, but where can they connect with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm pretty active on social media. So at Benta Clark on Instagram, Benta Clark on Facebook. My profiles are open, so please add me. Very open and vulnerable about that journey. Also, my email is just my name @gmail.com. I would love, especially to any women or men out there that you're in the midst of that infertility journey. And honestly, there's a lot of shame in our culture around that. We don't talk about it a lot. And there's kind of this hush-hush about it. And so I really just want to pull the layer back on that and say, hey, you know what? No, we don't hide in the shadows when we're in pain. You know, we come out into the light and we say, I need help. I throw up my hand and say, I need someone around me. And that's what's been so incredible about this community. And if I can be that for somebody else, I'm definitely there for that.
Well, Benta Clark, you are a badass mom.
Thank you.
And thank
you for...
You
can start. Do it.
I know.
Do it.
Well, we were going to have like kick-ass moms or something, so maybe that's what it is. But you are an inspiring example in so many different areas, and walking this journey, and your mental toughness is just really unparalleled. So I want to thank you once again for being on the podcast. We want to thank once again first responders, those people that are out there in uniform protecting us and getting us through these hopefully final days of the COVID crisis. If you want to go back and hear Aaron and Benta's story, Aaron tells it on episode number 40, so you can hear that as well. But man, there's so many kids that are looking for a home. This is a great avenue. I don't think everyone needs to adopt a kid, but if that is something, you should reach out to us. We definitely have some resources there to be able to help you as well. So hey, have a badass day, be a badass dad, and we are out. Hey guys, I want to thank you guys again just for listening to this episode of Badass Dads. Hey, if you found this episode helpful, if it's beneficial, if it's shareable, man, we'd love for you to pass it on to someone. Previous episodes you can check out on our podcast page, on iTunes, on Stitcher, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Also, check out our website, BadAssDads.org. That's BadAssDads.org. You can find us on Facebook and Instagram pages. So please, love the support. Check all that out. Let's get this movement going. And we are committed to forging stronger fathers. Be a part of the movement. We're out.